What's going on, everyone? Welcome back into another live edition of the Patriots Beat podcast here on the CLNS Media Network, presented by our wonderful friends over at Game Time, Prize Picks, and PXG. It is Brian Hines, back as always with Alex Barth. I think we're in the wrong boxes here, but it is Brian
Oh,
Hines and
I can
Alex
get that.
Barth.
There we go.
There we go. We flipped it around, but a victory Monday again. Patriots are winners out of 2 out of 3. Breaking news, huge news, as they beat the Chicago Bears.
That
19
momentum, Brian?
momentum. Could it be?
Dare we use that word?
Could it be a little bit of momentum? The tankathon people are hurting out of these last few weeks, but
No kidding.
19-3 win over the Bears in the Windy City. The Bears, woof. We can talk about them too, but I did want to start. We started last week's show when they lost to the Titans about the coaching staff, because we felt like there were a few key parts of that game that the coaching staff really fumbled and may have lost them, that close game that went into overtime. But I thought it was a bounce back performance from the coaching staff. Drake Maye, the coordinators that he even singled out after the game that had good game plans, good weeks of practice going in. And it was a step in the right direction for those guys. So did you feel the same about that? Or how do you feel, a week after what we thought they lost them the game? Do you feel a little bit better about the staff after this week?
I mean, they definitely, it was a better performance from the staff. And I think having the wrinkle with Brendan Schooler is something we haven't seen from them in a while. I thought being able to win the game without having to lean on Drake Maye so extremely was encouraging. I also think you feel better about him just because, you see what the other alternatives are. The Bears were supposed to be this unbelievable landing spot, and that was and it starts with the coaching. A brutal experience, and just interacting with Bears fans. I don't think that was an exception.
Yeah.
So, for as much as his coaching staff has been maligned, don't get me wrong, they have been far from perfect. That was pretty brutal to see what the Bears are bringing to the table too.
Yeah. The body language for those guys. I mean, there was the clips of them not picking up Caleb Williams, DJ Moore. DJ Moore has been a yearly thing, his poor body language.
Yeah.
And you go back to the London game was the big one for the Pats, where they fall to 1-7. That the whole soft comments come out of Gerard, and that could have been easily the turning point where the Patriots players are just kind of like, all right, let's pack this thing in. We could start to look like the Bears. But you've seen now, again, 2 out of 3 games they won. The other one they went to overtime. They're still playing hard for Mayo and his staff, and that's
right.
big when you are a young team and you are trying to establish this culture. This is the foundational year that they've talked about so much, because playoffs were a lofty goal going into the year, so you knew you were going to lose some games, but the fact that they're still playing hard for Mayo, I think, is a really encouraging sign, because we talked even before that the Bears might be quitting on Matt Eberflus and his staff, and it was ugly for Chicago there on Sunday. So I do think that is encouraging for the Pats perspective. And you said, the Brendan Schooler package, some of those other things they did in the game, some schematic changes. Again, it wasn't perfect, but I thought that was kind of a step forward and some good progress there from the coaches, especially after that Titans game.
Yeah, now it's about building on it, because, we'll talk about this as we go on. There are certain things you look at from that game. We just talked about how piss poor the Bears were coached, and some of the issues they had and that they've had this year. And it's all right. Well, did the Patriots improve, or, it's the old, did the Patriots win that game or did the Bears lose it? Did the Patriots get better or the Bears just that bad? I don't think you can make a blanket statement on that. I think it's different in different facets of the game. And the next step for the coaching staff is, so I'll give you one, for instance, the pass rush, nine sacks is great. Awesome. Against what is a pretty bad offensive line to begin with. And then they're down both starting tackles coming into the game. They were down a guard as well. They lost Tevin Jenkins during the game. You should embarrass that group. You should make that group look like a bunch of scrubs, because they had a bunch of guys off the street in there. And you can only play who you play. So that was who they were playing, and they embarrassed them, as they should have. It's going to get tougher. And can the coaching staff use this as a launch point, they're not going to get 9 sacks next week. And it's not necessarily a step back if they don't get 9 sacks next week. If they looked like they did against Tennessee, it is absolutely a step back. So even if the production isn't going to be the same, like, can you use the results? Can you use these results to build some sort of momentum, use it as a foundation moving forward?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we mentioned going into the game, like the Cardinals who played the Bears last week set a record for they had 16 different players, individual players record at least one pressure. They had Caleb under pressure like 45% of the time, which was right around the number the Pats got to yesterday. So that production is kind of an outlier. Again, the situation with the Bears offensive line that you just kind of laid out there. But don't go back to the Titans game or the Jaguars game where, what'd you say? They could send Trevor Lawrence's jersey to the pro shop and no one would even
Right.
know it's game worn or something. Like, find that
And then, I mean,
middle
you look at what
ground.
happened with the Jags yesterday, and
Yeah.
it's hard to believe that's the same group.
Yeah. So if they could find that middle ground that can be a little bit more consistent of a performing unit in some of those spots, um, that's what you're looking for. So that was kind of the thing Gerard Mayo hinted at this morning, right? Sustainability. He said this is how they have to win. He compared it to the week 1 win against Cincinnati, which, if you remember, a few weeks after that win, he said that was unsustainable. So he said he always has the right to change his mind, and based off where they are now in the schedule with the team, do you think this is the sustainable path for them? Like this, he said, play good defense, able to run the football finally. Special teams was up and down, but, probably a win for most of the day with Joey Sly. So is this path kind of sustainable and can lead them to victories to close this year out?
Well, this is where you got to sort through, what Gerard Mayo's saying. Because remember, he talked after the Bengals game and said, that's what we want to do, right? This is our identity. And then didn't a couple weeks ago, he said something like, yeah, we knew the Bengals game wasn't sustainable.
Yeah.
Remember that? And now he comes out today and it's like, this reminds me of the Bengals game. This is how we want to play. So the difference, obviously, is you have Drake Maye. That's a big difference. You also played a worse team. But winning at the line of scrimmage is never going to be a bad thing. And that's what yesterday was about. They were getting their ass beat at the line of scrimmage, both sides of the ball, up and down the field for essentially 3 weeks. They could do nothing about it. And yesterday, they were the team that was getting the initial push every time. Now, it's probably going to be somewhere in the middle. Like, when it all evens out, sometimes you're going to get the push, sometimes you're going to get pushed back. Like, that's competitive football. It's the NFL. The gap between the best team and the worst team is much smaller than people realize. But yeah, if by winning at the line of scrimmage, then this is the way they need to play. They're not good enough to have to put everything on second level players, which is receivers, linebackers, right? They're not built like that. So few teams are, but especially them. So yeah, in that sense, it's sustainable, but it's not. You're not guaranteed to have that push every week. You got to keep building on it.
Yep. I just pulled up the quote, and he did say the last thing he said was the physicality part is what he wanted to focus on there.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
you're
So
not going to win games scoring 19 points every week. As we just said, you're
right.
not going to get 9 sacks every game and hold teams to 3 points. But if you can win the line of scrimmages in particular, as they did last week, as they did against Cincinnati, that's the best path forward pretty much for every team, right? Across the league, winning the line of scrimmage is the best way to translate into wins. So that's what they need to do going forward. Be the more physical team, win the line of scrimmage, and that's what he is kind of harping on for being the sustainable part from those 2 wins. So that was kind of some of the coaching points I wanted to hit on. We can talk Drake versus Caleb, number 1 pick versus number 3 overall pick. Caleb was rough. That was a tough game for him. He looks kind of like he's playing scared, and a lot of that is Shane Waldron in that offense is not doing him any favors. Drake probably outplayed him, but I also might have been Drake's worst start, I would say. He had another bad turnover. Didn't think he was seeing the field as well as he has been. So what do you think of Drake and Caleb too, if you had any points of watching him kind of live for the first time?
So I would just say big picture. I think a lot of the issues we've had with how the Patriots have handled Drake Maye schematically, and I'm not saying those issues don't still exist. They do. But you look at what the Bears are doing with Caleb Williams, and it's like an extreme version, right? Why aren't they putting Drake in pistol? Should they be doing more play action? Like it's around the edges type of stuff. And it seems big when it's the only team you're focusing on. And look, Caleb Williams was not good yesterday. He got incredibly sped up. His accuracy fell apart. But a lot of what they're asking him to do is fighting who he is as a player.
Yeah.
And he was never going to be able to play the way he did in college and fully out of structure. But it seems like there's an emphasis on having him standing in the pocket, making reads and delivering the ball and not using his legs. And that's just bizarre. So he wasn't good. Waldron wasn't good. May was better. There's still some things they need to do with Drake Maye. It was Drake Maye's least productive game by far. And in a way, I actually think that's encouraging because look, they were able, and goes to the coach staff. They were able to win without having to lean on Drake Maye. 25 pass attempts, fewest in a full game this year. Like I'd say start, but throughout the Jets game, he had one big run late, but wasn't really a factor in the run game. They didn't need him to be because they got the run game going. He was kind of along for the ride. He threw that one atrocious pick. Yeah. And I think that came down to indecision. If you go, I know he said he was trying to throw it away. He's strong enough to get that ball to the boundary. Maybe he was trying to, turf it. But if you go back and look, like he starts rolling out and okay, so is there a throw there? Maybe you lob it over the linebacker or maybe he's trying to throw it away. But if you watch his feet,
it'd be tough to feather it in there.
It's a tough throw. If you watch his feet, but you're either like, you got to throw that on the run and use the mechanics of throwing it on the run and use your momentum to get more on the ball, or you set your feet and throw. And instead he half sets his feet. And I think he had time. He had the option to do either. I think if he sets his feet, he might get hit, but it's going to be after the ball comes out. So he half sets his feet. It looks like kind of sees a defender in his periphery who's not close, but he's there. And then goes into this little skip and jump passes. So that was just a rookie moment to me. That was him getting overwhelmed. And that's the kind of thing where we've talked about the turnovers are going to go down. They're never going to go away. They're going to go down, and it's about limiting them. That's when you just can't do again. That's one where it's mistake repeater at that point. But besides that, I thought he was clean. He made a couple big throws when they needed him to, but he was kind of along for the ride, and they were able to win with him doing that. And I think that's encouraging.
Yeah, that was such a big thing because, we talked so much after the Titans game. He did everything. He had to do the whole offense. He had more yards, if you count in the sacks, the net yards, he outgained the whole team. So the fact that he didn't have all of the load on his shoulder and he got some help with the run game, he mentioned, especially on first down, they averaged almost 5 yards per carry on first down, which just makes everyone's life easier. That was a big thing because it was a good Bears. We talk about the Bears. Their pass defense is still a good, talented pass defense. So you didn't expect them, put 300 yards, 3 touchdowns up. You knew this was going to be a little bit more of a challenge. They seemed like they wanted to keep him more in the pocket too. So there was going to be some struggles you would expect, but the fact that he got some help was big. And you mentioned the interception, can't have it, but the way he bounced back too, he throws a horrible interception, comes back to the next drive, goes 5 for 5, 54 yards, a touchdown, the only touchdown drive of the game. And then, and we can talk about this big moment, they get the ball back the next drive, end of half, they get down in field goal range. He makes maybe his best throw of the day to Kayshon Boutte over the middle, the big chunk gain there to, steal kind of 3 points at the end of the half there. Great play by Boutte to get the ball to the ref, something he's been doing all year. They get the spike down, get the field goal. I didn't love, we have to be fair and honest. I complained about it last week, so I'll complain about the 3rd and 1 run call again on that 2-minute, or it was like a 30-second drive. It wasn't a 2-minute drive. They only had 35 seconds, but maybe they didn't maximize the full clock there, but they scored points. So you can't yell at them. You unfortunately can't do your rant against them at the end of half situation. So maybe a little bit of sign of progress there too in the end of half.
Yeah, they can't figure out the 2-minute drill, but 35 seconds, no problem. Maybe they should start taking a knee when they get the ball back late in the first half. Again, use that, build on it. Are there things you did there? And they still did the 3rd and 1 gun run, which it worked, and it made more sense there than it did last week. But is it like, can you learn from that to improve your 2-minute drill? Can you learn from the 35 seconds to improve the 2-minute drill? That's what I would, if I'm the coaching staff, that's what I'm looking at this week.
Yeah. I get it wasn't as bad as a run play than last week. It might have cost you one shot to the end zone, considering you hit a big play on the 3rd and 1 and you called your timeout, and then maybe you take one shot to the end zone, then kick your field goal. But I don't know, maybe just they didn't fully maximize the clock or the yardage there. But again, they hit the big play right after that to Booty, great throw, good catch, good awareness after, and they still get the 3 points. So progress. Now you got to build off of it. So anything else from the Drake or Caleb? I mean, Bears have to fire Shane Waldron or at least make a play caller change, which is anything else from those two quarterbacks? Change your opinion maybe about the draft? I know it's so early, but
no, hindsight's 2020. Like, it doesn't change my opinion about the draft. It's more about the Bears maybe weren't as good of a landing spot as we thought they were. And maybe it's the approach in that, the Patriots had a dedicated quarterbacks coach, and he may not, or like a true quarterbacks coach and Alex Van Pelt, maybe he doesn't end up being the play caller they need him to be, but there's still value in the development. I mean, offensive line is adjacent, right, to the quarterback. I guess I would just say, hey, look, those 5 guys that have gotten used to playing together, actually pretty good when they play together. Stop tweaking it. Like, just leave those 5 in. I'm sorry that Layden Robinson's not a part of it. I know they want to develop him. Do it on the practice field. Do it next summer. Not right now. That group works. Don't touch it.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to go with the O-line next. I mean, we talked a lot. I think when we did our preview show, it was still looking like Michael Winu was going to play left guard. But we get out to practice on Friday, and now he's flipped back to right guard, and then they stuck with it to start the game, finish the game. The line that started the Jets game finished the Titans game with Mike at right guard, Trey Jacobs at right tackle, Ben Brown at center, Michael Jordan at left guard, and Vidarian Lowe at left tackle. Was it perfect? Again, no. The pressure rate was just under 40%. Drake got hit 7 times, but it was an improvement. And you saw better play from Michael Jordan and Ben Brown. It wasn't a complete kind of dumpster fire like it was when the Titans game started, and they shook that up. Now the Bears, they don't have a Jeffrey Simmons, but they still have a pretty good front up there, and to stick with some continuity, and you saw better play. Like, Mike Onwenu might have been their worst lineman, and you could say, sure, like he was playing left guard 2 practices, and now he's playing at right guard. Just those movements, again, probably not helping the cause, but you stick with the same lineup. This is the 3rd time they've started together, and you're starting to see that kind of pay off with the protection. Again, not perfect, and then a little bit more room on the ground game finally to help take some of the pressure off your rookie quarterback.
Yeah. So I think you got to stay with that group. Like, it's working. You got to stay with them.
Yep. Got out of there healthy too, so they can stick with them if they want to. But before we talk about the wide receivers, I want to tell you guys about Prize Picks, where you can win up to 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks. You can make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on Prize Picks. Barth and I submit our Patriots lineup every game day, and you can join in or extend it to the entire league with stars like Justin Jefferson, Saquon Barkley, Patrick Mahomes, and more. Dolphins at Rams tonight. So Tua, I think Tyreek Hill is playing. Matthew Stafford, he's got his receivers back with Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. So you can put any of those guys in your lineup that you believe in. And Prize Picks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy. So your lineups stay in play. Even if one of your players gets injured, if your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Picks keeps your lineup live. So download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup on Prize Picks. Run your game. All right. Bit of a curveball to the wide receiver room on Sunday. We had, it was reported after couple series, Andrew Callahan of the Boston Herald said Kendrick Bourne was told Saturday night that he might not be playing much in order to play some of the young guys. But that young guy was 27-year-old KJ Osborne, who's on a 1-year deal because He played the second most amount of their snaps, 29 snaps. Kayshon Boutte, as he kind of has been, led the room with 62. And then it was Pop Douglas at 27, a little bit of an increase for Jalen Polk, 26. Javon Baker stayed at 4, and Kendrick Bourne 0. So they did play a lot of the game out of their 2 tight end sets, right? So KJ Osborne as a run blocker, and Polk, they were in there a lot.
If you look at the splits, Douglas played more pass plays than Osborne did, even though Osborne played more snaps total, which makes sense. Well,
yeah,
sort of,
but it still just felt like a weird move. And I know Bourne, he didn't practice in the offense all summer. You could see, last week he had a couple errors with his route depth and some of the mental stuff. But if you want to play the kids, like, put Javon Baker and Jalen Polk out there more, not KJ Osborne. That just felt like a weird switch to me. I don't know how you felt about it.
Yeah, I didn't like it. Well, let me start with what I did like. Drake Maye and Kayshon Boutte have chemistry, and Boutte's coming along, and he's been a nice player. And him being the most used wide receiver makes sense at this point. Good for him for working his way up to that. Like, he's earned that. I like that. Pop Douglas going to stay involved. Makes, like, he's a good player. Makes sense. But he does have those limitations on, like, run situations like we just talked about, which is where, like, Jalen Polk, you saw he sets a block on the goal line on second down, and they're able to use that. They turn into a check and release to get him open on third down for the touchdown. But again, so Callahan reports during the game that Bourne's not playing because they want to get the kids on the field more, which, like, fine. And everybody knows how I feel about Kendrick Bourne. I think Kendrick Bourne should be out there as much as anybody. But if you want to tell me it's play the kids, we're going to put Polk out there. Baker's actually going to play. He's going to run routes. He's going to get targets. Like, fine. Do they not, like, KJ Osborne? He's technically younger than Bourne. He's 27. Bourne's 29, but 27-year-old in an expiring contract. I don't know if they're trying to placate him because they couldn't trade him and they want to make sure he doesn't become a problem. I don't know if they wanted to, like, showcase him so that, do him a favor. Like, hey, play this week. We'll showcase you and we'll cut you. Maybe it's that. There's really no football reason to play KJ Osborne over Kendrick Bourne. And they're really, putting a lot behind this guy in terms of the snaps this week. You heard Alex Van Pelt talk about him as a leader the week after he kind of messaged that he wanted a trade. It makes me wonder if they think he's part of the plan moving forward, even though he's on an expiring contract. They gave him a lot of money, relatively speaking. Like, he got a $4 million contract in free agency this year. $3 million of it was guaranteed, a little over $3 million. That's a lot for that situation. So they clearly like him, even though he really hasn't shown anything. And yeah, it wasn't because they were playing the kids. Like, I'm not saying Andrew was lying. I believe he was told that because he's good at his job and he's not going to make stuff up. But I think that was just a line they put out there because he didn't play the kids. Like, we saw it, right? The kids didn't play.
It sounds like a good reason to bench Kendrick Bourne.
Right.
Like, I think everyone could get behind if it was Javon Baker out there for 20 snaps. He was out there for 4, and it was 4 run plays.
Right. And so, like, that's not playing the kids.
Yeah, you saw a little bit more Polk, but that was just built in. It seemed like that was trending. But so you didn't just see more of the kids. You saw KJ Osborne.
Right. So I don't know if they look at him and they're like, he's only 27 and he's had a down year, so we can re-sign him easily. And, next year he's going to be a big part of it. But, like, I don't know. I'd rather have the better receiver out there for my rookie quarterback.
Yeah. The only thing that really made sense to me was just the kind of the mental errors for KB last week. And, Osborne has spent the whole summer in the offense. He kind of played in a similar offense in Minnesota, right? He probably has these things down, but I'd rather just play the kids, or B, work through those mental errors with Kendrick Bourne because he gives you more as an actual receiver, right? Like, his separation skills are better. He's better with the ball in his hands after the catch. So it was a weird decision. Again, like, if you want to put Kendrick Bourne on the bench to play Javon Baker, I think we all want to see a little bit more of Javon Baker at this point. They keep telling us how explosive he is, which, you watch it if you go back in college and watch him. They say they want to get him more involved, and they're not getting him more involved. So it was kind of a weird choice. I don't know if it's just going to be a week by week thing or how things just kind of keep going, but weird choice just to put KJ in there over Bourne. Shout out to Kendrick Bourne for seemingly handling it great. Like there was a video that they posted of all the guys running off the field after, and you would not know Kendrick Bourne played 0 snaps. Like still had all of his energy. He's wanted to be a bigger leader in the locker room, and he definitely is. So credit to him to handling it, but just kind of a weird change there. So we'll see if that sticks or how the room looks next week. But it was good to see Jalen Polk find the end zone. It was his only catch of the game, but I'm sure that kind of felt like a monkey off the back for him with all the struggles he's been going through to make a play and get in the end zone there. So that was good to see from him. But
maybe that's the one that gets him going, right? We've talked about just a confidence booster. Can you start turning the page? And I mean, we'll see if that's it. But with these mental things, like it can be a little thing like that. It can be a little thing that gets you in it. It can be a little thing that gets you out of it.
Yep. So hopefully that flips the switch for him. Big second half would be big. So anything else for the offense for you? I mean, Austin Hooper had a good game in the tight end spot, a couple big catches. But anything else in your offensive notes before we move on?
Yeah, I mean, the run blocking was better. That's one I'm more chalk up to the Bears not being great at it. Like the one thing, the Bears have a good pass rush. So I give the line a ton of credit there. I did think Ramondre Stevenson ran well. I thought you saw him finishing runs, right? Falling forward, not letting the first defender bring him down. That stuff he was doing early in the year. He hadn't done it the last few weeks. He was coming back from that foot injury. This was the first game in a while. It felt like he really ran angry, and you see what a difference it makes. So I thought he was good in this game. And I like that Antonio Gibson got some run late. One, because he should be playing more, and it was an opportunity for him to show the coaches he should be playing more. And just in that moment, like I just said, physical game for Ramondre Stevenson. Take a little bit off his plate, manage his workload a little bit.
Yeah, I'd love to see more of him. It might be an injury. He's been on the injury report, so maybe that's why he's been limited. But I think he should get some more touches there. You can see the explosiveness, and they need explosive playmakers. Ramondre definitely ran hard. I will say I thought there were one or two, like he had one-on-ones with defensive backs, and he couldn't make a miss. So, but he did run hard, and even like the pass protection, some big plays as a physical pass protector. So, good game from him. Besides some of those misses, I would have liked to see him make. If you're paying your running back, your top paid running back, you'd like to see maybe him break one of those two. But yeah, I definitely agree on Antonio Gibson, more of him. So let's flip over to the defense. I mean, the big thing was the Longhorn package. That was a really good design by Covington and Mayo to use Brendan Schooler in those obvious third down passing situations, right? Schooler even said the stat after the game, Caleb Williams had like 34 plays where you held the ball for 6 seconds or longer, which is absurd. And you see that's the type of game Caleb Williams wants to play. So that was a really creative package, and it worked, right? He had the pressure, or he had the quarterback hit, and then he had the sack. Like, really interesting wrinkle from that group. Maybe you might even see it more. I think Devon Gottschall just said in the locker room, like, we need that more because we play some athletic quarterbacks in the second half of the year. So credit where credit's due. That was an awesome wrinkle, and it worked with Schooler playing some defense there.
Yeah, fun wrinkle. It's been a while since they did something like that. And it makes sense. They're struggling to find athletic off-ball linebackers, lose Mac Wilson free agency. Raekwon McMillan obviously didn't have it this year. He was just cut. And unfortunately, like the next few weeks probably don't need it, right? You shouldn't need Brendan Schooler to spy Matthew Stafford or, probably Joe Flacco in a couple of weeks, but they still have Josh Allen twice. They have Kyler Murray. They have Justin Herbert. Like, they have more athletic quarterbacks, and you can see, like, there is a little bit of that special teams just close the distance, just pick the right angle and close the distance. And Schooler was doing that. And it's not like he's totally alien to it. He was a starting safety as a freshman in college, played, with the defensive unit a lot in camp in the preseason. Not saying he needs to be on the field a ton. That was probably about as much as he needed to be. It's very situational, but it's a good wrinkle to have. And we've been waiting for the defensive coaching staff to kind of put something like that in, and they finally did.
Yeah, just those obvious passing downs, third downs, like perfect time to call that. It was, similar to, they did something against Lamar Jackson that was kind of similar with John Jones. So, it was buried there somewhere in Gillette Stadium, and they went and found it. So credit to them. And Schooler was a perfect guy to do that. Again, as you said, with that skill set, that special team skill set, kind of translating there. So good wrinkle, part of the game plan. What'd you think of the rest of the game plan? It was a ton of man-to-man. I think they played man-to-man at like the third highest rate of any team this season. It was over 60%, which we've been kind of clamoring for them just to play more man in general. So I thought that was good. You saw the success, good coverage plan. We saw John Jones more at free safety in some of those situations. So did you like the plan and then the execution on other parts of that besides the Brendan Schooler package?
Yeah, I did. I did. I thought they the big thing for me was, and this goes back to the Bears, they had that one drive where they kept throwing to Keenan Allen, and they were putting multiple guys on. They tried Marcus Jones, they tried John Jones. I think Marco Wilson got a couple snaps there, and they couldn't cover him. And it's a long-standing trend this year. We've talked about it. They struggle with these bigger physical receivers. The Bears never went back to it. So I don't know why they went away from that, but the coverage plan as a whole, I liked. I thought there were maybe more plays for the Bears to make that they just didn't make. But like you said, the increased man coverage, things like that, I thought that was a good sign.
Yep. Yeah, there were definitely a couple plays left on the field. Like Christian Gonzalez had a good game, but there was one, I think it was, I forget it was Moore or Dunze. I think it was DJ Moore. He kind of got him on a deep ball, but Caleb Williams just doesn't pull the trigger. So they were few and far between, but there were a couple plays there to be had. And I do think, Gerard said it after the game, they had 9 sacks, but I think the coverage played a big part in a lot of those coverage sacks. There was some good coverage for most of the game with Gonzalez. Marcus Jones, even though he was giving up some size on some of those plays, had some good reps. And then the John Jones at free safety, I really like that role for him. Kind of second phase of his career, if you want to call it, if he wants to keep playing that. But I think that was a good wrinkle to kind of throw in there as well. But 9 sacks. Tons of guys getting involved on the defensive line. Anyone stand out on that level to you in that sack party there?
Yeah, I mean, how could they not? I think Keon White finally breaking through, and he's been better than the numbers suggest. The production just hasn't been getting home. So he finally got home. Anthony Jennings, if he can play more of a 3-down role, that's significant. And he had a couple sacks.
He had 7 pressures yesterday and 2 sacks.
So that would be great if he can be that kind of guy, in addition to stopping the run the way he has. Brendan Schooler, Del Pettis, each getting their first career sack is cool. But again, this is when I go back to where it's like, it probably felt good for them to get that. And it's never easy in the NFL, but you're not going to be able to do that every week. That Bears line was atrocious. And it's like, all right, the numbers were great, but let's see that you could put out the same effort and maybe only end up with like 3 sacks. But if you can turn the heat up, get to the quarterback, all that, we'll see what happens this week. Like Yannick Ngakoue, how he factors into that. And I don't think it's entirely a coincidence that they signed Yannick Ngakoue and suddenly everybody steps up as a pass rusher, because new player, you don't want to come off the field. But let's see who builds on it. Let's see who uses that momentum. Let's see who took that opportunity to figure something out. It continues. Because there's going to be some guys, I think, in 3 or 4 weeks, we point to this game and say, yeah, it was good in the Bears game, but that was it. Like, he never followed it up. And then there's going to be some guys we point and say that was kind of a launching pad for him. And, he was so dominant in that game, and, he took a step back a little bit, but that's what it's more about to me. Like, who's going to build on it and who would be the best guys to build on it. I think a guy like Anthony Jennings, Keon White, Jeremiah Farms, if he can be more that interior rusher that they're severely missing without Christian Barmore. He's not going to be Christian Barmore. He's never going to be Christian Barmore, but you can give them something like that. Like, those are the guys I think you look at and it's like, okay, can they use this? I feel like a building block, launching pad, foundation. Like, I've just been these same words over and over and over for the last 24 hours. But that's what this game was to me. That's how you have to look at it.
Yeah. Yeah. Farms was awesome too. A couple sacks, or 1 sack and a couple run stuffs. But yeah, maybe some of these guys, like I've been saying, like, just they see it go in, right? Like you see a layup go
Right.
in against a struggling and injured offensive line. You kind of get in there and have your way. You see one go in, and now you get that confidence and the momentum, and you can build off that. So, especially some of those young guys like Farms, Keon White is still in his second year. So, I did want to ask you about, the claim of Yannick Ngakoue. Just were you a fan of that? They waived Raekwon McMillan, who did clear waivers, so they can bring him back on the practice squad. But former Pro Bowler, he obviously has been playing at that Pro Bowl level. He's been a journeyman the last few years, but still only 29 years old. Did you like that move, and do you have any expectations for that move?
I mean, I don't dislike it. He's not the same player he was in Jacksonville or even, his first stint in Baltimore. He's still a ways away from that. They need bodies. Like, they need guys to get after the passer. If he buys in, a veteran in that room with his kind of success can be a leader. Now, does he look at it that way, or does he look at, I just went from, a Super Bowl contender to one of the worst teams in the league, and maybe getting the win here helps him buy in a little bit more, but it's not like receiver where they're maybe taking snaps away from young guys.
Yeah.
They don't really have any young guys there. They don't have anybody there. Again, they needed a body, and Ngakoue is as good as anybody you're going to get this time of year there. So my expectations aren't super high, but I understand why they did it. I don't have a problem that they did it.
Yeah. It would be one thing if, next year they draft an edge in the second round, and now you sign a 29-year-old veteran to play over the second rounder, right? That's where you're like, okay, just play the kids, but they don't have really a young guy on the edge right now. It's like O'Shawn Mathis is the depth behind Anthony Jennings and Keon White. So I don't mind the ad there. Just see if he's got any juice left. It was a struggling pass rush before the 9 sacks yesterday. That's going to help the cause in the numbers, but just see if he can provide anything. It was interesting. Mayo said he could be a 3-down player for them. He's only played like 17 in that range snaps this year against the run. Like, that hasn't been a strength of his game. Even like back to his Pro Bowl days, he's been more of a situational, or he's been a top pass rusher. And as he's gotten kind of older, he's fallen into that situational pass rusher role. So I don't know if he'd have a 3-down role. I definitely don't want to take Anthony Jennings off the field early for him.
Right.
Maybe if he's takes some of Keon White's early snaps. Keon White's had some issues against the run at times, maybe, but will be interesting to see how that one kind of works out. So,
yeah, I was surprised when Drake Maye said that today about him being a 3-down player.
Yeah, because again, that hasn't been kind of his usage at all in his career. So we'll see. He said he's been watching them for a while, so maybe they have a plan. Maybe we'll see what happens there. But any other notes on the defense for you before we kind of move on?
Briefly touched on Del Pettis.
Yep.
Good. Good to see him kind of have a couple games here where he's looked good, and his play will dip when Kyle Duggar comes back, but I don't think it should be 0. Like, he has a role in this defense.
He's been good against some tight ends in coverage. He had a pass breakup on Komet, and he had some good coverage reps against him too. So, good play from him. I thought, Jelani Tavai too was really good. That's someone we've been talking about building some momentum, and you saw Sione Taki work in there a little bit more with Raekwon McMillan getting cut. Just kind of a sturdy, solid game from Taki, nothing too flashy. So good to see him get involved, but good game from those 2 linebackers. And then Pettis, as you said, was impressive on Sunday. So we can wrap it up with a little bit of special teams talk and then get out of here. But before we do that, I want to tell you guys about Game Time. We get all of our tickets, whether it's football, basketball, hockey, any other sport you guys are going to, with the Game Time app. I went to the Boston College game this weekend, big win over Syracuse, and I, of course, used the Game Time app to get our tickets. And they have a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier, because it filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. If you are going or interested in going to Gillette Stadium this Sunday, Rams at Patriots, cheapest get in right now is $80, or of course you can use Game Time Picks. Move right down to the lower level, $120 right now. 10 rows up from the end zone, looks like, under the lighthouse. Great spot, great seats to watch a game. So make sure you head over to Game Time for their lowest price guaranteed and other in-app features such as seat views, all-in pricing, and of course Game Time picks, which makes it easier to save more on all of your tickets. So take the guesswork out of buying those tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. All right, just wrapping up quickly here. Special teams, some good, some bad, kind of the story of the past few weeks, right? It was really windy there in Chicago. Joey Sly handled the elements, made all 4 of his field goals. You saw Marcus Jones break another big return, kind of help kickstart that end of that first half drive. But first punt of the game, you give up almost a 40-yard return, which that has been the real kind of reoccurring theme. Fortunately, the Bears offense wasn't able to take advantage of it, but some continuous issues with that punt return unit. So kind of a continued mixed bag, I would say, from the special teams unit in this one.
It's still they're searching for that well-rounded game, right? They're still searching for that well-rounded game. And you had Joey Sly hit a couple field goals and Marcus Jones in the return, and you want to like sink your teeth into it, right? And then it's that early punt return they let up. That's what, 3 and 4 weeks, 4 and 5 weeks they've let up a field flipping punt return.
3 and 4 because they had the big touchdown against the Jaguars.
Yeah.
The Jets was a 40-yarder, which was also on the first punt of the game. So I don't know if there's something there. And then 38 yards yesterday against the Bears. So
yeah, it didn't bite them in this game because the Bears were just that inept offensively. But it's going to. It's bit them before and it's going to again. So that's something they have to get cleaned up. And, that first game we talked about it, masterclass, right? They're still trying to get back to that. If it's not one thing, it's another. And some parts are good, some parts aren't. Still looking for that complete special teams performance.
Yep. So we'll see if they can correct that. They did. I know Marcellus Dial, who's been their other gunner, left the game with an injury. So maybe there's some personnel changes they can kind of tinker with to, stop that punt return game, because that's been, again, the big pain for them in that aspect of the game. But we'll see what happens there. So anything else? Any last notes, thoughts, anything on this one, or we can kind of wrap this up?
No, I think that's pretty much it.
All right. So we will call it there. We will be back on Thursday. We have, again, the Los Angeles Rams coming to Foxborough. They play Monday Night Football tonight, so you can get an early scouting report on them. And then we will be back probably on Thursday.
It's double because it's Rams and Dolphins.
And Dolphins. There you go. Your next 2 matchups. So
wait, hang on. Before we wrap up, Brian. Sorry, before we wrap up. Big shakeup in the college football playoff poll.
Oh, did they drop the poll?
There's gonna be. They drop it tomorrow.
But you just meant like Georgia losing, Bama with a big win,
and Miami losing.
So I forgot.
I just mentioned that because Miami lost. Does a 2-loss non-conference champion Miami team get in the playoff? Let's say they lose to SMU in the conference championship.
How much pull does Cam Ward have?
Well, so this is why it's relevant to the Patriots. Like, it would be good for the Patriots if Miami makes it and Cam Ward has a couple big games against playoff teams. So there's an interesting dynamic there when it comes to the Patriots and what happens with Miami. I think Miami's going to beat SMU. I think they're going to be a conference champion. Maybe they don't get the bye. Maybe this turns into like Boise State or even possibly Army getting a first round bye in the playoff. But yeah, the playoff is going to add something to the draft. Like we sort of saw it with Michael Penix last year, where he had that big game and everybody's like, is he actually the first overall pick? And then he had the game against Michigan. Everybody's like, is he even a first round pick? Now you have 4 of these games and there's going to be more teams and more chances to face good defenses. Everybody's down on this quarterback class. And I get why. I understand why. You have Shadur's going to be a first round pick. Cam Ward's going to be a first round pick, one way or the other. It's about where, but I think you're going to have a guy or guys, quarterbacks that go on a run in the playoffs and suddenly become a part of this conversation. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Miami.
Yeah. I think we're out of that Carson Beck territory on that one. I still think Colorado might find their way into the playoffs somehow, but
It's possible.
yeah. And you know, if I think Shador could be the first quarterback off the board at this moment anyway. And you know, if he has a big playoff game or two, that would certainly help his cause. So yeah, I mean, the Patriots kind of slid down the draft board with the win. You know, you take it to get the win at this point, but those quarterbacks will be big because you know, even if it's not for a trade down, if they're going ahead of you, then you know that's pushing someone else down the board. So as many quarterbacks that are you're going higher up in the draft will be good for the Patriots now that they have their guy in Drake Maye. So a little shakeup in the college aspect there. So we'll see what happens, but. We'll wrap it up there. Again, Rams at Patriots Thursday. We'll be back most likely to preview that. So make sure you are subscribed to Patriots Press Pass here on YouTube. You can also follow Alex on Twitter at RealAlexBarth. Head over to 985thesportshub.com for his Patriots coverage over there. And you can follow me on Twitter at I am Brian Hines and head over to patspulpit.com for our Patriots coverage there as well. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in with us tonight, and we will see you guys later this week.
Bye.